Sir, this seat is not yours. I need you to move to the economy cabin immediately, or I will have you removed from this flight.
You need to move, sir. This cabin is for first-class passengers. Claire Morgan said it loud enough for the first 3 rows to hear. The words cut through the quiet cabin like a snapped wire. A man in seat 2A slowly looked up from his phone. His name was Ethan Brooks. He was 44 years old, dressed in a dark zip jacket, plain jeans, and clean but worn leather shoes. Nothing about him announced money. Nothing asked for attention. He looked like a tired businessman trying to get through another flight from Chicago to Los Angeles without being bothered. That was what Claire saw. A man who did not fit the picture in her head. Ethan blinked once. His face stayed calm. "I'm sorry," he said. Claire stood in the aisle with a tablet pressed against her hip. Her uniform was perfect. Her smile was not. It sat on her face something rehearsed in a mirror. "I said this section is for first-class passengers," she repeated. "Economy boarding is behind you." The cabin went still. A champagne glass stopped halfway to a woman's lips. A man in a navy blazer lowered his newspaper. Somewhere behind them, the small click of a phone camera sounded. Ethan felt it. Not surprise. Recognition. He had felt this same cold little moment in hotel lobbies, private clubs, boardrooms, and restaurants, where the host handed the check to someone else. He knew the look, the quick scan, the silent math, the decision made before the facts arrived. Still, he kept his voice low. "My boarding pass says 2A. Claire's eyes flicked to the seat number above him, then back to his face. For half a second, doubt crossed her expression. Then pride covered it. "May I see it?" Ethan reached into the inside pocket of his jacket and handed her the pass. She took it with 2 fingers, as if it might stain her. Behind her, another flight attendant, Tyler Bennett, leaned against the galley wall. 29, sharp haircut, easy smirk. He watched the exchange like it was entertainment. Claire looked at the pass longer than necessary. Her thumb moved over the screen of her tablet. A pause, then another. Ethan saw her jaw tighten. "It may be a system error," she said. "It scanned at the gate," Ethan replied. Claire's smile thinned. "Sir, sometimes people get confused during boarding." The word people landed harder than it should have. A white couple seated across the aisle exchanged a glance. Not shocked, not yet, just curious. Curious in the way people become when they think trouble belongs to someone else. Ethan breathed in through his nose, slow, measured. He could have ended it there. One sentence, one name, one title. But he did not yet. Because he had not boarded this flight as Ethan Brooks, Chief Executive Officer of Aerovista Airlines. Not publicly, not today. Today he had come as a customer, a quiet one, a paying one, a man with a valid ticket and a simple expectation. To be treated like a human being, Claire shifted her weight. "Sir, I'm going to ask you to gather your belongings." Ethan looked at her hands. One gripped the tablet, the other hovered near her radio. He looked at Tyler, who gave a small laugh under his breath. Then Ethan looked around the cabin. Eyes turned away, some slowly, some quickly, but a few stayed on him. One woman in row 4 held her phone just below her chin, recording now. Her face had changed. The discomfort was gone. In its place was something sharper. Witness. Claire leaned closer. "Let's not make this difficult." Ethan folded his boarding pass once and placed it on the armrest. His voice stayed quiet. But the cabin heard every word. "I'm not moving." Claire did not move at first. She stared at Ethan as if she had expected him to fold the moment her voice sharpened. Most passengers did. Most people hated scenes in airports and airplanes. They apologized even when they were right. They gave up comfort just to escape the heat of other people watching. But Ethan Brooks stayed seated. The air vent above him hissed softly. Somewhere in the galley, ice shifted inside a metal drawer. The sound was small, but in that frozen cabin, it felt loud. Claire lowered her chin. "Sir, refusing a crew member's instruction can become a serious matter." Ethan looked up at her. "I understand that," he said. "But I'm not refusing a lawful safety instruction. I'm refusing to give up a seat I paid for." Tyler pushed away from the galley wall and stepped closer. His smile was gone now. Without it, his face looked younger, less confident, but more eager to prove something. "Come on, man," Tyler said. "Don't turn this into a whole thing." Ethan heard the word manland with a little extra weight. Not friendly, not casual. A small shove dressed as conversation. "I'm not turning it into anything," Ethan said. "I boarded. I sat down. You came to me." A few passengers shifted in their seats. Claire's eyes moved toward them. She could feel the room changing. That made her nervous. Not enough to stop. Just enough to dig in. She tapped her tablet hard. "There appears to be a seating irregularity." Ethan gave a slow nod. "Then check with the gate. We don't need instructions from you." The sentence came out too fast. Even Claire heard it. For the first time, a crack appeared in her polished control. Her cheeks tightened. Her mouth pressed into a line. Across the aisle, Richard Whitman cleared his throat like a man used to being heard. "Excuse me," he said. "Is this going to take long?" Claire turned toward him, and the change in her face was instant. Softer, warmer, almost apologetic. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Whitman. We're handling it." Richard stood in the aisle beside his wife, Margaret. He was tall, silver-haired, and dressed in a camel coat that looked expensive without trying. Margaret held a leather handbag close to her body and watched Ethan with a tired little frown, as if his presence had lowered the value of the cabin. Richard pointed toward Ethan's seat. "That's usually my seat on this route." Ethan looked at him. "Usually doesn't mean assigned." Richard blinked, surprised to be answered. Margaret leaned toward Claire and spoke in a whisper that was not really a whisper. "We paid for premium comfort. We shouldn't have to deal with this before takeoff." Emily Parker, seated in row 4, lifted her phone a little higher. Her hand trembled, but she kept recording. She had seen enough. Not everything, but enough. Claire stepped back into the aisle, now standing between Ethan and the Whitmans, as if she were protecting first class from him. "Mr. Brooks," she said, reading his name from the boarding pass with open reluctance. "We can offer you an exit row seat with extra legroom. We may also provide a travel credit." Ethan's expression did not change. "I didn't ask for extra legroom. I bought this seat." Tyler exhaled through his nose. "You're making people uncomfortable." That made Ethan pause. For the first time, something moved behind his eyes. Not anger exactly. Something older. He thought of his father, a school principal in Detroit, who used to tell him that dignity was not silence. Dignity was knowing when silence had become surrender. Ethan placed both hands on the armrests. "Who exactly is uncomfortable?" he asked. "The people watching me being pushed out of my seat? Or the people upset that I won't make it easy?" No one answered. The cabin held its breath. Claire reached for the radio clipped near her shoulder. "Security to aircraft door," she said, her voice tight. "We have a non-compliant passenger in first class." A soft gasp came from somewhere behind Ethan. Emily whispered to herself, barely audible. Oh my God, Ethan heard it. Claire heard it too. But now there was no walking it back. Not for her. Not for Tyler. Not for the airline that still did not know the man in seat 2A had the power to change all of their lives before the plane ever left the gate. The word security moved through the cabin faster than the sound itself. People straightened. Phones rose. Conversations died in the middle of sentences. Even Richard Whitman stopped adjusting his cufflinks and looked towards the front of the aircraft with a faint, satisfied lift at the corner of his mouth. Ethan saw it. He saw all of it. The fear in some faces, the curiosity in others, the quiet relief in people who believed order was being restored, even if that order meant removing the wrong man. Claire kept her radio close to her mouth. Her thumb trembled once before she lowered it. "Sir," she said, "you still have a chance to handle this respectfully." Ethan almost smiled at that. Respectfully. It was a strange word to offer after taking a man's dignity and calling it procedure. "I have been respectful," he said, "since the moment I boarded." Tyler stepped beside Claire, close enough to make it look official. "You're delaying the flight," he said. "No," Ethan replied, "you are." That landed hard. Tyler's face tightened. He looked toward the other passengers, searching for support. He found Richard. Richard gave a small nod. That was enough. "Look," Richard said, raising his voice in the smooth tone of a man used to country clubs and boardrooms. "I don't know what the issue is here, but some of us have connections to make. Maybe the gentleman could just cooperate and sort this out later." Emily lowered her phone for 1 second. "The gentleman has a ticket," she said. Her voice was not loud, but it cut cleanly through the cabin. Claire turned toward her. "Mom, please remain seated and do not interfere." Emily's cheeks flushed, but she did not look away. "I am seated," she said, and I saw his boarding pass. A murmur moved through first class. Small, uneasy, human. For the first time, Ethan felt something inside him soften. Not because he needed rescue. He had learned long ago not to depend on strangers for justice. But there was healing in being seen, even by one person, even late. Margaret Whitman leaned toward her husband. "This is ridiculous," she whispered. "Why is everyone acting like we did something wrong?" But her voice shook. Deep down, she knew the answer. From the front of the plane came the sound of heavy steps on the jet bridge. Rubber soles, metal floor, a clipped rhythm. Officer Linda Hayes appeared at the aircraft door. 41, composed, with tired eyes that had seen too many airport arguments before breakfast. She took in the scene quickly, Claire standing rigid, Tyler behind her, Ethan seated. Phones recording, passengers tense. Her hand rested near her belt, not on her weapon, but close enough for everyone to notice. "What's going on?" she asked. Claire moved first. "This passenger is refusing crew instructions. He is seated in first class without proper clearance, and he will not relocate." Ethan looked at Linda. "That is not true." Claire snapped back. "Sir, do not interrupt." Linda raised one hand. "Everyone take a breath." For a second, the cabin obeyed. The hiss of air filled the silence. A baby cried somewhere in economy. Far outside the oval windows, a baggage cart beeped as it backed away from the plane. Linda turned to Ethan. "Sir, may I see your boarding pass and identification?" Ethan handed them over without hesitation. Linda studied the documents. Her eyes moved from the pass to the license, then to the seat number above him, 2A. Her brow tightened. "This appears valid," she said. Claire's head turned sharply. "It may appear valid, but we have a premium guest who was supposed to have this seat." Linda looked at her. "Supposed to?" Claire's mouth opened, then closed. That one word had changed the air. Supposed to was not assigned. Supposed to was not paid for. Supposed to was preference dressed up as policy. Ethan watched Linda understand it in real time. He saw the shift in her eyes, small but real. Then Tyler made the mistake. "Come on, officer," he said. "You can see what this is. People try this all the time." Linda's face went still. "What people?" The question struck like a gavel. Tyler swallowed. Claire looked down. Richard stopped smiling. Ethan leaned back slowly, his breath controlled, his expression unreadable. In his jacket pocket, his phone buzzed once. Then again. Rachel Adams had seen the first video. So had the legal team. And at Aero Vista headquarters, 3 executives were about to learn that the man their crew was trying to remove, seat 2, was the one person in the company they should have protected most. Ethan's phone buzzed a third time, but he did not reach for it. Not yet. He knew every movement was being watched now. Claire was watching his hands. Tyler was watching his face. Richard Whitman was watching for weakness. Officer Linda Hayes was watching for truth. And truth, Ethan knew, often entered a room quietly. Linda held the boarding pass in one hand and Ethan's license in the other. "Mr. Brooks," she said, "this ticket shows first class, seat 2A. "Yes, Mom." She turned to Claire. "Do you have something in the system that says otherwise?" Claire lifted her tablet quickly, almost too quickly. Her fingers tapped the screen. Once, twice, then again. The silence around her grew heavier with every second. Tyler leaned in. Maybe the gate agent cleared him wrong. Linda looked at him. "That is not what I asked." Tyler's mouth closed. Claire stared at the tablet as if it had betrayed her. Her thumb dragged across the screen. Her eyes moved fast, searching for the answer she needed instead of the answer that existed. "It shows him in 2A, she said finally. "But that does not explain the premium accommodation note." "What note?" Linda asked. Claire hesitated. Everyone heard the hesitation. Richard stepped forward, annoyed now. "I fly this route constantly," he said. "The crew knows I prefer that seat. I was told they would take care of it." Margaret touched his arm. "Richard," she whispered. But he kept going. "I am a platinum executive member. I spend more with this airline in a year than most people make. Surely that counts for something." Ethan slowly turned his head toward him. It counts for courtesy, Ethan said. Not ownership, a few passengers murmured. Emily's phone stayed steady. Her eyes did not blink. Claire's face flushed. She had wanted a simple removal, a quick correction. A quiet man pushed into a lesser place while everyone pretended nothing had happened. But the story was no longer hers to control. From the cockpit came the sharp sound of a door opening. Captain Mark Reynolds stepped into the cabin. He was 52, broad-shouldered, with gray at his temples and the practiced calm of a man used to emergencies. But this was not how turbulence. This was not a mechanical issue. This was something messier, something human. He scanned the cabin, phones up, passengers tense, an officer in the aisle. A black man seated still as stone in 2A. "What is going on here?" he asked. Claire turned to him with relief so visible, it almost looked like fear. "Captain, this passenger has refused multiple crew instructions. We have a seating conflict with a premium guest, and he has become non-compliant." Ethan felt the old pattern click into place. Complaint first, context later. Label first, person later. Captain Reynolds looked at Ethan, not unkindly, but not neutrally either. He was already thinking about departure time, the tower, the schedule, the report he would have to file if this got worse. "Sir," the captain said, "I need you to help us resolve this." Ethan's voice stayed even. "I have been trying to resolve it since she first questioned whether I belonged here." Claire's head snapped toward him. "That is not what happened." Emily spoke up again. "It is exactly what happened." Claire turned. "Mom, this is your final warning." Captain Reynolds raised his hand. "Enough." The cabin froze. He took the boarding pass from Linda and examined it. His eyes narrowed. He looked up at the seat marker. 2A, then at the tablet in Claire's hand. "Claire," he said carefully, "does our manifest show Mr. Brooks assigned to this seat?" Claire swallowed. "Yes, but no but," Linda said quietly. The captain heard it. Everyone did. For a moment, Captain Reynolds looked trapped between procedure and pride, between the authority of his crew and the evidence in his hand. Then Richard made it worse. "Captain, with all due respect, I have flown with you people for years. Are you really going to delay an entire aircraft over this?" This. The word landed on Ethan's chest. Not man, not customer, not passenger. This. Ethan finally reached into his jacket and silenced his phone. One glance at the screen. Rachel Adams, message after message. Video received, legal notified. Board chair aware. Awaiting your instruction. Ethan placed the phone face down on the armrest. He looked at the captain, then at Claire, then at every passenger, pretending not to stare. His voice dropped lower. "When a company forgets that people are people before they are seat numbers, status levels, or assumptions, it does not just lose customers." He paused. "It loses its soul." No one spoke. Not Claire, not Tyler, not Richard. The captain's radio crackled at his shoulder. "Captain Reynolds, operations is requesting immediate contact. Priority call from headquarters." Ethan did not smile. He only looked out the window, where the jet bridge lights reflected against the glass like warning signs. Headquarters had just entered the story. Captain Reynolds stepped away from the aisle, but not far enough to escape the eyes on him. He turned his shoulder toward the galley and pressed the radio closer to his ear. "Reynolds here," he said. The voice on the other end was low, urgent, and stripped of small talk. "Captain, this is Operation Control. Are you currently dealing with a passenger named Ethan Brooks in seat 2A? The captain's face changed. Not much, just enough. His eyes moved toward Ethan, then away again. "Yes," he said. "We're resolving a seating conflict." There was a pause on the line. A pause heavy enough to be felt. "That is not a standard passenger." Captain Reynolds went still. Claire watched him from 3 feet away. Her expression tightened. She could not hear every word, but she could read the room. Something had shifted. The authority she had been leaning on was no longer leaning back. "What do you mean?" the captain asked. Operations did not answer directly. "Do not remove him from the aircraft. Do not escalate further. Airport management is coming to the gate. Corporate legal has been notified." The captain swallowed. Claire saw it. Tyler saw it. Ethan did too. Outside the window, a ramp worker guided a baggage cart past the nose of the plane. The world outside kept moving. Inside, everything had stopped. Captain Reynolds lowered the radio slowly. "Claire," he said, his voice quieter now. "Step back." Claire blinked. "Captain, step back." This time it was not a suggestion. Claire took one step away from Ethan's row. Her face flushed red, then pale. Tyler's eyes darted toward the open aircraft door as if he suddenly wished he were anywhere else. Richard Whitman folded his arms. "Captain, I hope you're not letting this get out of hand." Linda Hayes turned toward him. "Sir, please return to your assigned seat." Richard stared at her. "My assigned seat?" "Yes, sir." The words struck him harder than they should have. For men like Richard, assigned had always been flexible. Preference had a way of becoming policy when everyone around him bent fast enough. Margaret touched his sleeve again, this time with urgency. "Richard, sit down." He did, but his jaw worked as if he were chewing glass. Ethan remained in 2A, still, controlled. But inside he felt the ache of the moment settle deeper. He had known power for years, contracts, board votes, press conferences, decisions that moved money and people across states. Yet none of that had protected him from being reduced to a suspicion in a cabin full of strangers. That was the wound. Not the inconvenience, not the delay. The wound was being unseen. Captain Reynolds faced him now. "Mr. Brooks," he said, choosing each word carefully, "I apologize for the delay. We are reviewing the situation." Ethan looked at him. "Captain, with respect, you are not reviewing the situation. You are reviewing your exposure." The sentence was calm. No anger, no raised voice. That made it worse. The captain held his gaze, and for the first time, shame crossed his face. Not fear. Shame, the older kind. The kind a decent man feels when he realizes he followed the wrong voice because it was familiar. Claire stiffened. "That is unfair," she said. "We were following procedure." Ethan turned to her. "No," he said. "You were following an assumption." The cabin went silent again. Emily's phone caught Claire's face at that exact second. The tight mouth, the blinking eyes, the panic of someone who had confused control with righteousness. Linda handed Ethan back his license and boarding pass. "Mr. Brooks, you are legally seated where you belong." Ethan accepted the documents. "Thank you, officer." That simple thank you seemed to unsettle Linda. She had expected anger, maybe even bitterness. Instead, he gave her dignity while standing in the middle of his own humiliation. She nodded once. A quiet nod, a human one. Then footsteps rose from the jet bridge, fast, several of them. A woman in a navy suit appeared at the aircraft door, breathing hard, one hand gripping a company badge. Karen Mitchell, airport operations manager, scanned the cabin until her eyes found Ethan. Her face drained. She knew him. Not from the manifest, not from social media, from the company's confidential leadership file. She stepped forward, voice almost breaking. "Mr. Brooks, I am so sorry." Claire's eyes widened. Tyler whispered, "Mr. Brooks?" Karen looked at the crew, then at the captain, then at the passengers filming from every angle. Her next words landed like a hammer. "This is Ethan Brooks, Chief Executive Officer of Aerovista Airlines." For a moment, no one breathed. The name hung in the cabin like a siren. Ethan Brooks, Chief Executive Officer of Aerovista Airlines. Claire stared at Karen Mitchell as if the woman had spoken another language. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Tyler looked down at his shoes. Captain Reynolds stood frozen with the radio still near his shoulder. Richard Whitman leaned forward. "CEO," he said too loudly. Margaret closed her eyes. She understood before he did. Emily kept recording, but her hand had stopped shaking. She knew the world had just turned, not in a loud way, in a clean one, like a door locking behind people who had been careless with power. Karen moved down the aisle with both hands raised slightly, careful not to look like she was taking control from Ethan. "Mr. Brooks," she said again, quieter now. "I apologize. I was notified by headquarters. I came as fast as I could." Ethan looked at her. "Were you notified because I am the CEO?" he asked, "or because a passenger was being mistreated?" Karen's face changed. That question found the place in her that still believed she was one of the good ones. The place that knew good intentions did not help a person after harm had already been done. She lowered her eyes. "Because of who you are," she admitted. The honesty hurt the room. Ethan nodded once. "That is the problem." No one argued. Not because they agreed yet. Because they could not escape it. Claire's fingers tightened around her tablet. "Mr. Brooks, I didn't know," she said. Ethan turned to her slowly. His gaze was not cruel. That made it harder. "You did not need to know I was the CEO to treat me with basic respect." Claire blinked fast. Her face crumpled for a second, then pulled itself back into a professional mask. She was trying to survive the moment, but survival was not the same as accountability. "I thought there was a seating issue," she said. "You made one." His voice was soft, sharp, final. Tyler took a small step back. Ethan saw it and turned to him. "And you," he said. "You laughed before you checked anything." Tyler swallowed. "I was just backing up my coworker." "No," Ethan said. "You were backing up her assumption." The words settled over him. Tyler looked young then. Not innocent, just young. Young enough to have learned the wrong habits from people who called them experience. Officer Linda Hayes shifted slightly in the aisle. "Mr. Brooks," she said, "do you want this handled here or at the gate?" Ethan looked around the cabin, at the phones, at the faces, at the passengers who had watched. Some looked ashamed. Some looked defensive. Some looked relieved that the anger was not aimed at them. Then his eyes found Emily. She lowered her phone a little. "I'm sorry," she said. "I should have spoken sooner." Ethan's expression softened for the first time. "You spoke," he said. "That matters." Emily's eyes filled, but she nodded. There was healing in that small exchange. Not enough to erase what happened. Nothing could do that. But enough to remind the cabin that justice often begins with one ordinary person refusing to look away. Captain Reynolds cleared his throat. "Mr. Brooks, I take responsibility for not slowing this down sooner." Ethan faced him. "Captain, safety requires authority. I respect that. But authority without judgment becomes force. And force without fairness becomes a harm." The captain absorbed the words like a man taking a blow he deserved. "Yes, sir," he said quietly. Richard Whitman stood again, but this time without the old confidence. "Mr. Brooks, I think there was a misunderstanding." Ethan looked at him. "No," he said. "There was an understanding. Everyone understood exactly who was expected to move." Richard's face went red. Margaret looked at Ethan, then at the floor. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "It was not grand. It was not enough. But it was real." Karen's phone buzzed. She checked it and stiffened. "Headquarters is requesting direction," she said. Ethan picked up his own phone at last. Rachel Adams answered before the first ring finished. "I'm here," she said. Her voice was calm, but behind it was motion. Phones, lawyers, executives. A company waking up to its own reflection. Ethan looked down the aisle at Claire, Tyler, the captain, the Whitmans, and every passenger who had seen the truth arrive late. "Rachel," he said, "call an emergency board meeting." Claire shut her eyes. Tyler stopped breathing. Captain Reynolds looked down. Ethan's voice stayed steady, and preserve every recording. Rachel did not ask if he was sure. She knew Ethan too well for that. "When?" she asked. "Now," Ethan said. The word was quiet, but it moved through the cabin with more force than Claire's radio ever had. Rachel's voice stayed steady. "I'll bring in the board chair, legal, operations, human resources, and communications. Do you want the flight held?" Ethan looked toward the front door of the aircraft, still open to the jet bridge. Then he looked at the passengers. Some had appointments. Some had families waiting. Some were innocent bystanders pulled into an ugly moment they never asked for. "No," he said. "Do not punish the passengers for what our company failed to prevent." That sentence changed several faces. Emily lowered her phone to her lap. Officer Hayes looked at Ethan with something close to respect. Even Captain Reynolds seemed to breathe for the first time in minutes. Claire stared at the floor. She had expected power to strike hard. Instead, it made room for people who had done nothing wrong. That was what frightened her most. Ethan continued. "Arrange another aircraft crew if necessary. This flight should depart safely, but no one involved in this incident should work this cabin until reviewed." Claire's head snapped up. "Mr. Brooks," she said, her voice breaking. "Now, please, I have been with this airline for 12 years. Ethan looked at her. "And how many people have you treated this way in 12 years? The question was not loud. It did not need to be. Claire's mouth trembled. For the first time, she seemed to search backward through memory. Not for answers, for evidence against herself. A man in a sweatshirt questioned twice. A woman with braids asked if she was in the wrong line. A Latino grandfather ignored until his white son spoke for him. Little things. So small she had called them instincts. So common she had called them experience. Her eyes filled. "I didn't mean to hurt anyone," she whispered. Eth's voice softened, but did not let her escape. Impact matters more than intent. Tyler looked away. The phrase seemed to hit him too. He was thinking of every joke he had made in the galley. Every time he had laughed because the senior crew laughed. Every time he had chosen belonging over courage. Karen Mitchell stepped closer. "Mr. Brooks, I can have replacement crew brought from standby. It may delay departure. How long?" "About 20 minutes. Ethan nodded. "Do it." Captain Reynolds spoke carefully. "Am I being removed as well?" Ethan turned to him. "You will remain until relief arrives. Then you will report to operations and provide a full statement." The captain's jaw tightened, but he nodded. "Yes, sir." Richard Whitman shifted in his seat. "So what happens to us?" he asked. Ethan looked at him with calm disbelief. "To you?" Richard cleared his throat. "I mean, this has all been very uncomfortable." Margaret closed her eyes again, pained. Ethan leaned slightly toward him. "Mr. Whitman, discomfort is not the same as injustice. Remember that." The older man had no answer. For a moment, the whole cabin sat with that sentence. Discomfort is not the same as injustice. It was the kind of lesson people claimed to know until they were asked to live by it. Karen turned to the passengers. "Ladies and gentlemen, we apologize for the delay. A standby crew is being called to assist, and we expect to continue boarding procedures shortly. Thank you for your patience." No one clapped. No one cheered. It was not that kind of moment. It was heavier than victory. Ethan stood at last. The simple act made Claire flinch. He noticed, and that saddened him more than he expected. Not because he pitied her. Because she still saw accountability as attack. She still did not understand that consequences were not cruelty. They were the beginning of repair. He took his carry-on from beneath the seat. Emily rose slightly. "Mr. Brooks?" He turned. "I posted the video," she said. "It's spreading." Karen's shoulders tightened. Rachel's voice in Ethan's phone sharpened. "We're aware. Communications is already tracking it." Ethan looked at Emily. "Did you post it to shame them?" he asked. "Or to show what happened?" Emily swallowed. "To show what happened." He nodded. "Then keep it honest." She nodded back. That mattered to him. Truth could heal. But truth twisted for entertainment became another kind of harm. At the aircraft door, Ethan paused. He looked back at Claire, Tyler, Captain Reynolds, Richard, Margaret, Officer Hayes, Emily, and the passengers who would remember this flight long after they landed. "This company will answer for what happened here," he said. "But so will the culture that made it feel normal." Then he stepped into the jet bridge, and the cabin remained silent behind him. The jet bridge felt colder than the cabin. Ethan walked through it without looking back. Karen Mitchell stayed half a step behind him, close enough to guide, not close enough to lead. She understood now that the difference mattered. At the gate, a small crowd had already formed. Passengers waiting for nearby flights had heard pieces of the story. Some held phones low against their chests. Others pretended to check departure screens while watching Ethan move past the gate counter. He had spent years building a company that carried strangers across the country. Yet in that moment, he felt strangely alone. Not weak, not broken, just tired. Rachel Adams was already on speaker in his hand. "Conference room B is clear," she said. "Board chair is online. Legal is joining. Communications has the video. It has passed 50,000 views and climbing." Karen inhaled sharply. Ethan did not react. Numbers did not surprise him. People always seemed to notice pain faster when it was packaged as a video. "Any official statement?" he asked. "Not yet," Rachel said. "Waiting for you." "Good." Karen led him through a side corridor away from the public gate area. The carpet changed from airport gray to corporate blue. The noise softened. Rolling luggage faded behind them. Ahead, fluorescent lights hummed over closed doors and framed safety posters. "Respect every passenger." Ethan stopped in front of one. The poster showed a smiling flight attendant helping an elderly woman with a bag. He stared at it for a moment. Karen stopped too. I walk past that every day, she said quietly. Ethan looked at her. And did it ever change how people were treated? She did not answer at first, her eyes lowered. No, she said. That was the first useful answer anyone had given him all day. They entered conference room B, a long table, a screen on the wall, a pitcher of water untouched in the center. On the monitor, faces appeared one by one. Board Chair William Hart, General Counsel Denise Porter, Chief Operating Officer Alan Price, Human Resources Director Monica Lewis. All of them looked serious. All of them looked alarmed. But Ethan had known many alarmed executives. Alarm was often about risk, rarely about harm. William Hart spoke first. Ethan, we are deeply concerned. Ethan sat at the head of the table. About what? The question made the screen go still. William blinked. About what happened, of course. Ethan leaned back. Be specific. Denise Porter adjusted her glasses. We have a developing public relations and legal exposure issue. Ethan nodded once. There it is. No one spoke. He placed his boarding pass on the table in front of him. The paper looked small under the bright lights. Too small to carry the weight of what had happened. This is not first a public relations issue, Ethan said. This is not first a legal issue. This is first a human issue. Monica Lewis swallowed. Ethan, we agree completely. He looked at her through the screen. Do we? Her face tightened. He continued. I was questioned before I was heard. My valid ticket was treated like a trick. My calm was treated like defiance. A white passenger's preference was treated like policy. And this only became urgent when people discovered my title. The room absorbed each sentence. Slowly, painfully. Alan Price rubbed his forehead. We need to identify whether this was an isolated breakdown. Ethan's eyes sharpened. No, Alan looked up. Ethan tapped the boarding pass once. Do not call it isolated, because that makes everyone comfortable. Pull the last 3 years of complaints, involving seating disputes, cabin access, appearance-based assumptions, and premium passenger treatment. Monica looked down and began typing. Ethan's voice stayed low. I want patterns, not excuses. Denise leaned closer to her camera. We should be careful with language until the review is complete. Ethan turned to her. Careful language has protected this company from truth long enough. The silence that followed was heavy. Then Rachel's voice came through the phone. Ethan, Emily Parker has posted a second clip. It shows Officer Hayes confirming your ticket was valid. William Hart closed his eyes. Alan whispered something off screen. Ethan stood. No one attacks that passenger, he said. No one questions her motives. No one releases anything that makes her look unstable or opportunistic. She documented what our own systems failed to correct. Monica nodded quickly. Understood. Ethan looked at every face on the screen. The public will ask what we are going to do, not what we regret, not what we deny, what we are going to do. He picked up the boarding pass. His hand was steady. Start with this. Claire Morgan and Tyler Bennett are suspended pending investigation. Captain Reynolds is removed from duty until review. Every crew member on that aircraft gives a statement today. And by tonight, I want a plan for retraining that is not a checkbox video. Karen stood near the door, listening with wet eyes. Ethan saw her, then looked back to the screen. People do not need luxury to deserve respect, he said. They only need to be people. And for the first time that day, no one tried to interrupt him. By late afternoon, the video had left the airport. It moved through phones in living rooms, offices, church group chats, retirement communities, and break rooms where people watched with their lunch half finished and their eyes fixed on the screen. Some saw a CEO being mistreated. Others saw something older, something familiar. A quiet man forced to prove his place while everyone around him treated suspicion like common sense. At Aero Vista headquarters, the crisis room filled fast. No one called it that out loud, but everyone knew. A long glass table, half-empty coffee cups, laptops open, phones buzzing, the glow of cable news on the wall with the same headline rolling again and again. Aero Vista CEO questioned in first-class incident. Rachel Adams stood near the screen, sleeves pushed up, her calm beginning to crack at the edges. Mentions have passed 800,000, she said. The main clip is everywhere. News producers are asking for comment. Civil rights groups are requesting a meeting. 2 senators have posted about airline accountability. William Hart rubbed both hands over his face. We need to get ahead of this. Ethan sat at the end of the table, still wearing the same dark jacket from the flight. He had not gone home. He had not changed clothes. He had not eaten. He watched the screen as Claire's face appeared again, then his own, calm, seated, being told to move. This is not something we get ahead of, he said. This is something we stand inside and answer for. Denise Porter, the general counsel, leaned forward. We should avoid language that admits liability before the investigation is complete. Ethan turned to her. Denise, a valid ticket was ignored. A passenger was pressured to surrender his seat for another passenger's preference. Security was called. That passenger happened to be me. Which part still needs enough uncertainty to hide behind? Denise looked down. No one rescued her. Monica Lewis entered with a folder pressed to her chest. Her eyes were red, not from tears, but from reading. I pulled the complaints, she said. The room stilled. Ethan's gaze moved to her. How many? Monica swallowed. In the last 3 years, there were 117 complaints involving premium cabin access, seat reassignment pressure, or passengers reporting they were questioned because of appearance. Rachel closed her eyes. Alan Price whispered, God. Monica opened the folder. A black physician asked to show identification 3 times after boarding first class. A retired Army veteran told his upgrade was probably a mistake. A Latina grandmother moved out of a front row seat after a frequent flyer complained. A young man in a hoodie asked whether he was traveling with someone else. Her voice broke on the last word. She stopped. The room heard what she could not say. Someone else. Someone who belonged. Ethan stood slowly. The chair rolled back with a low scrape. 117, he said. No one moved. 117 times people told us they were hurt. And we filed it, closed it, smoothed it over, sent vouchers, called it customer service. His voice was still controlled, but it had changed. There was pain in it now, not performative. Personal. Do you understand what that means? William Hart nodded. It means we failed. Ethan looked at him. No. It means they trusted us enough to complain, and we taught them that telling the truth would change nothing. That landed harder than accusation. Because it was grief. Rachel's phone buzzed. She glanced down. Emily Parker's daughter just emailed, she said quietly. Emily is getting attacked online. Some people are calling her a liar. Others say she posted it for attention. Ethan's jaw tightened. Put out a statement now. We thank the passengers who documented the incident. We ask the public not to harass any witness, employee, or customer involved. Accountability is our responsibility, not an excuse for cruelty. Denise looked up. That is strong. It should be. Ethan walked to the window. Evening had settled over Chicago. Planes lifted into a bruised orange sky, one after another, carrying people who trusted strangers with their lives. His voice softened. We move people through the sky, he said. That should make us humble, not superior. Behind him, Rachel began typing. Monica wiped her cheek. Alan closed his laptop and pushed it away, as if seeing the numbers on a screen had finally become unbearable. Ethan turned back. Tomorrow morning, I will speak publicly. Not through a statement, not through legal language. I will stand in front of the country and say what happened. William looked uneasy. And what exactly will you say? Ethan picked up the folder of complaints. The truth, he said. All of it. The next morning, Ethan Brooks stood behind a plain wooden podium at Aero Vista headquarters. No music played. No smiling banner stood behind him. Only the company logo, a row of cameras, and the low murmur of reporters waiting for words that could either heal a wound or make it deeper. Rachel Adams stood near the wall with a folder pressed to her chest. Karen Mitchell sat in the second row, hands clasped tight. Officer Linda Hayes had been invited, not for display, but because Ethan believed witnesses deserved protection, not silence. Emily Parker sat near the aisle. She looked nervous, older than she had on the plane. Not in age, but in weight. Her video had changed lives overnight, including her own. Ethan stepped closer to the microphone. The room quieted. He looked at the cameras, then down at the boarding pass he had placed on the podium. The same one from seat 2A. This began with a seat, he said, But it was never only about a seat. A camera clicked. Ethan did not blink. Yesterday, I boarded one of our flights as a paying passenger. I was questioned. I was doubted. I was pressured to move from a seat that was legally and properly mine. That should not have happened to me. More important, it should not have happened to anyone. Rachel lowered her eyes. She had heard him speak to investors, employees, and senators. But this was different. This was not performance. This was a man telling the truth while still carrying the bruise of it. Ethan continued. I was treated differently before anyone knew my title. That is the part we must not ignore. If respect arrives only after power is revealed, then it was never respect. It was fear. The room stayed still. Even the reporters stopped typing for a moment. He opened the folder beside him. In the last 3 years, Aero Vista received 117 complaints related to appearance-based assumptions, seating disputes, and unequal treatment in premium cabins. We failed to see the pattern. We failed to listen deeply enough. For that, I am sorry. His voice slowed. I am sorry to every passenger who was made to feel small in a place where they had every right to be. I am sorry to every person who showed a valid ticket and still had to prove their worth. I am sorry that our systems protected comfort before dignity. Karen wiped one eye with the back of her hand. On the side of the room, William Hart looked down at the floor. He had spent the night reading complaints. Names, dates, short messages from people who had not wanted money. They had wanted to be believed. Ethan's voice grew firmer. Effective immediately, Aero Vista is launching an independent review of cabin service practices. The employees involved in yesterday's incident have been removed from duty pending investigation. Every customer-facing employee will complete live bias and de-escalation training. Not a video, not a checkbox. Real training led by people qualified to teach it. He paused. And we are creating a passenger dignity office, independent from standard customer service, with authority to review complaints and recommend action directly to leadership. A murmur moved through the room. This was not the usual apology. This had teeth. Ethan looked toward Emily. I also want to thank the passengers who recorded what happened honestly. Truth is not cruelty. Truth is light. And light gives people a chance to repair what pride tried to hide. Emily pressed her lips together, fighting tears. Ethan turned back to the cameras. I cannot undo what happened in seat 2A. But I can decide what that moment becomes. It will not become a cover-up. It will not become a legal paragraph. It will become a turning point. His hand rested on the boarding pass. A small paper. A heavy truth. People do not earn dignity by dressing a certain way, flying a certain class, or carrying a certain title. They are born with it. Our job is not to grant it. Our job is to honor it. He stepped back from the podium, then looked once more into the cameras. If this story reminded you that silence can protect injustice, then let it also remind you that one honest witness can begin healing. Like this story if it moved you. Subscribe for more stories about courage and human dignity, and comment these 3 words. Never stay silent.